Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Hello and welcome. Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria conducts dry run of flight operations in Abuja and Lagos as the Minister of Aviation gives assurance of domestic flight resumption soon. Former National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Oshiomhole, says his loyalty to President Buhari and the APC remains unshaken as he formally accepts the dissolution of the party's National Working Committee. Governor Obaseki received certificate and flag of the People's Democratic Party leadership, says he is confident of winning the Edo State governorship election on September 19. And COVID-19 cases surged across the world with more than 9 million infections, leaving nearly 500,000 people dead as almost 5 million patients recover. Thus, you'll see business and sports.
Business news: Nigeria's oil production rises further by 225,000 barrels per day as Shell's local subsidiary completes rehabilitation of Bunga vessel.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria's Odion Igalo scores 5th goal in 4 starts as Manchester United beat Norwich City to advance in the English FA Cup.
Now, air travelers within the country may not have to wait for too long to begin flying again, as the Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria has been conducting a dry run of flight operations as the domestic airlines prepare to resume commercial flights. Members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 observed the simulation at the local wing of the Murtala Mohammed International Airport, Lagos, after inspecting the compliance with COVID-19 guidelines at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, Abuja. The Minister of Aviation, Mr. Hadi Sirika, is appealing to passengers ahead of flight resumptions to take personal responsibility for their health beyond the facilities provided. Our correspondent Bukola Joe Ketumbi reports.
This is the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja as passengers take part in a dry run to test the airport's readiness for flights. COVID-19 protocols are observed with a 1.5 meters physical distance marking, 2 hand wash areas and bags disinfecting section. Port health workers take the temperature of intending passengers. Technology is also employed for temperature checks.
The regulator of the aviation industry, NCA, had issued advisories, guidelines, and what all service providers, including FAN and including my agency, NAMA, and the airlines, have to have in place for us to restart.
With the protocols fully observed, passengers proceed to board the test flight to Lagos, and the middle seats on board are left empty as part of the physical distancing rules. The aero contractor flight from Abuja rolls onto the airside of the airport in Lagos, and the Minister of Aviation inspects COVID-19 compliant facilities at the Murtala Mohammed Airport 1.
Following instructions, avoid land gathering, maintain at least a 1.5 meter social distance.
At a news conference, authorities in charge say a 90% compliance has been achieved.
Of course, I'm not 100% satisfied, but I'm more than 90% satisfied, and I said so. Once we are good to go, we will go. Once everything's okay, I told you there are 2 components of it. There is the health component, there is the technical component. And this thing is not as easy as you see.
For this airline operator, the big birds are ready for the skies.
A few days ago, we decided to do shakedown flights. This shakedown flight, one, is to fly this plane, was to fly the planes without passengers on board. To do whatever we have to do to ascertain the readiness of these planes.
While aviation authorities are assuring passengers of safety, one thing still rings through. When local flights resume, each and every passenger must take personal responsibility for their safety with the facilities provided. From the General Aviation Terminal in Lagos, Bukola Joe Ketumbi, Channels Television News.
And now to politics. The former chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Mr. Oshiomhole, has formally accepted the dissolution of the party's National Working Committee under his leadership, saying his loyalty to the party and President Buhari remains unshaken. According to him, loyalty is put to test when the going is tough, and he is bound to obey the president as the leader of the party, who had invited him 2 years ago to reposition the APC. Mr. Oshiomhole said this today during a press briefing in Abuja, where he also told journalists that he has instructed his lawyers to withdraw his suit challenging his suspension from the party in court.
I believe that the NWC, the APC, under my chairmanship, had done its best, and the results are there. Of course, we have now been dissolved, and I have accepted that dissolution in good faith. I am not going into the issue of legality or illegality. The bottom line is the president who invited me to lead the party and who gave me all the support and who mobilized all the support across the country for my emergence as chairman also presided over the meeting where the NWC has now been dissolved. And because I have always assured the president of my loyalty, and you know it's easy for people to speak to loyalty where the going is good, but loyalty is brought to the test when the going gets really, really tough. So as a demonstration of that loyalty to Mr. President, loyalty to our party, and loyalty to the Nigerian nation, I have decided to accept the decision in good faith. Accordingly, I have instructed my lawyers to withdraw my case that is currently pending at the Supreme Court, which has to do with the issue of my suspension. To sustain the legal action, we tantamount to disobey one of the decisions that the president has reached, namely that all cases be withdrawn from court.
Meanwhile, a chieftain of the All Progressives Congress, Senator Bola Tinubu, has been reacting to the recent crisis in the party and decisions made at Thursday's NEC meeting, which included the dissolution of the National Working Committee. In a statement, the former governor of Lagos State described the infighting in the party as the behavior of a fight club with party discipline thrown out of the window. While backing the decision of the president to wade into the crisis, he asked members of the party who feel aggrieved to accept the outcome of the NEC meeting. He also addressed insinuations that the dissolution of the National Working Committee would affect his ambitions for 2023, calling it an alleged political ambition that is not yet even born. Well, the presidency has reacted to the speculation that President Muhammadu Buhari and the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Bola Tinubu, are having a frosty relationship. In a series of tweets, the presidential spokesman Garba Shehu says the relationship between President Muhammadu Buhari and Asiwaju Bola Tinubu has been cordial. Mr. Shehu accused the opposition of stoking the rumor and a rift between the president and Mr. Tinubu. According to him, they are in touch with one another and their relationship remains as strong as ever. Now, the governor of Edo State, Mr. Godwin Obaseki, has received his certificate of return from the National Working Committee of the People's Democratic Party, having emerged as the party's flag bearer for the September governorship election in Edo State. The certificate was presented by the national chairman of the PDP, Mr. Uche Secondus, who says the party is delighted to have the governor. Fielding questions from journalists at the PDP headquarters in Abuja, Mr. Obaseki says he is optimistic about winning a second term in office According to him, his administration in the last 4 years has built a strong foundation that he will consolidate on going forward.
The PDP accepted us and made it possible for me to become their candidate. I also want to thank members of the NEC and the National Working Committee of our great party for their responsiveness. We have done so much in the last 3 years in Edo State, trying to rebuild hope, rebuild our economy, rekindle the sense of Edo in our people, the sense of pride as a people. We've focused on our social economy, education, health, the elderly. But those were just foundations we laid in these areas. So the next 4 years, by the grace of God, will be to build on the foundations we have laid.
Staying with politics in Edo State, the Young Progressives Party has joined the League of Political Parties that have conducted peaceful primary elections to choose a flag bearer for the September 19 governorship election in the state. The party members from the various local government areas participated in the election, which was held at the state secretariat of the party in Benin City. At the end, a consensus candidate, Mr. Yobosa Osagiobare, was chosen to fly the party's flag. Mr. Osagiobare says he is in the race to win and not to complete the numbers.
We are taking advantage of the crisis. We will not leave the crisis without getting something out of the crisis. A great man said something that I always like. He said, don't waste the crisis. So we are not wasting the crisis. So as they are fighting, we are taking advantage and taking hold to the government. Let me tell you, the truth is, we know there's going to be a lot of political legal battles. And we ourselves, we have put ourselves, we have arranged, and we have strategized. So as they are fighting, we are taking mantle of leadership. We are taking Osadebi Avenue come September 19, 2020.
And to security matters, the military says troops of the Air Task Force of Operation Lafia Dole have carried out more successful airstrikes in Tongule and Bukamerem in Borno State. A statement by the Defense Headquarters explains that the strikes were undertaken after a series of surveillance missions indicated a resurgence of terrorist activities at the two settlements. At Tongule, troops observed frequent convergence of terrorists, with about 35 of them spotted at the NAV surveillance aircraft in different parts of the settlement. Similarly, in Bukamerem, a Boko Haram logistics hub of the fringes of the Lake Chad was also destroyed, with several terrorists killed. Meanwhile, in Ondo State, gunmen have abducted 9 people on a road close to Isuakoko in Akoko Southeast local government area of the state. They were said to be traveling from Abuja to Lagos when the gunmen emerged from a nearby bush, stopped the Toyota Space bus they were traveling in, and led them into the bush, abandoning the vehicle. The spokesperson of the state's police command, who confirmed the incident to Channels Television, says men of the command were able to rescue one of the victims. He said that the police are working with hunters, local vigilantes and other security agencies to rescue the others. In part 2, after the break, we have more on crime matters, plus an update on the findings of the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Representatives on the appropriations of government agencies. Please stay with us. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the News at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria conducts dry run of flight operations in Abuja and Lagos as the Minister of Aviation gives assurance of domestic flight resumption soon. Former National Chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Oshiomhole, says his loyalty to President Buhari and the APC remains unshaken as he formally accepts the dissolution of the party's National Working Committee. Governor Obaseki State certificate and flag of the People's Democratic Party leadership says he is confident of winning the Edo State governorship election on September 19. And COVID-19 cases surge across the world with more than 9 million infections, leaving nearly 500,000 people dead and almost 5 million patients recovered. Our website, channelstv.com, has more information on our top stories and others. Subscribe and watch Channels Television's live stream on YouTube and other social media platforms using your mobile device browser, or download the Channels TV app for Android and iOS devices from their respective stores. You can also watch us via your smart TV platforms, Apple TV, Android TV, Fire and Roku TV. Now, officials of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps have apprehended a man for allegedly defiling a 3-month-old baby and 3 other minors in Nasarawa State. The Deputy Commandant of the Nasarawa State Command, BC Oluguboyega, said that the suspect perpetrated the act in Adogi community of Lafia East Development Area, where they all reside. The victim's mother says she wants justice to prevail.
Baby Rukaya Aliyu from Adogi community in Nasarawa State is still healing from the pains of sexual assault, which has led to 3 surgeries as the clock ticks for the 4th one. Her 4th, hopefully final corrective surgery will also take place at the University of Jos Teaching Hospital, Plateau State, where she was brought after being discovered in an abandoned building where she had been assaulted.
This girl was brutally assaulted sexually, and in the process she suffered horrendous injuries to her perineum.
This is the spot where baby Rukaya Aliyu was found after her mother woke up in the middle of the night to discover she was missing. It's close to a month since the incident, and with grief still evident all over her face, Rukayat's mother has only one wish.
My wish is that the culprits should be apprehended, or else this will continue, because the culprits will say they have done it severally and gone scot-free. But if they are brought to book, others will take note.
She got her wish as the suspected culprit, who has been on the run since the incident, is now in the custody of the Nigeria Security and Civil Defense Corps, Nasarawa State Command.
The idea of rape or defilement is becoming a cankerworm, hitting deep into the fabrics of the society. Everybody will have to wake up. Every reasonable human being will have to wake up to wage war against it.
According to residents, the incident is the 4th involving minors in the last 2 years.
This is the 4th one now, and it bothers us. Whether or not the elders in the community support us, with the youth of Adogi, we will take a measure.
Say no to rape. Say no to rape. No excuse for rape.
This is another case that got women on their feet to demand for an end to sexual violence, a call echoed by the Commissioner for Women Affairs.
It is time the men leave our daughters alone, that it is time that every man that commits such crime of raping our girls must be fished out from our community and be charged to court for prosecution.
So far, 30 cases of rape have been reported to security personnel in Nasarawa State between January and June this year, as various groups continue to push for stiffer penalties against convicted offenders. Halima Gayam, Channels Television News.
Truly heart-wrenching story there. Let's go over to Delta State, where the police command has begun investigations on the 6 pump-action assault rifles hidden in a church building in Okwe community, Asaba, the state capital. A community vigilante and pastor of the church, Freeman Eze, was arrested during the recovery operation. He claimed the firearms were for the protection of the church. The Commissioner of Police in the state, Hafiz Inouar, said that investigation is ongoing to ascertain the true picture of things. Increasing society's awareness on the dangers of illicit drug use is as necessary now as it has ever been. This is coming from the chairman of the Edo State Drug Control Committee and Commissioner for Health in the state, Dr. Patrick Okundia. His message aligns with the theme, Better Knowledge for Better Care, coined to celebrate the International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, also known as World Drug Day. Our correspondent Jessica Olugoshere reports.
The United Nations World Drug Report 2020, released on June 25, discloses that there has been a rise in drug use globally in terms of overall numbers and the proportion of the world's population that uses drugs. According to the report, in 2009, the estimated 210 million users represented 4.8% of the global population aged 15 to 64, compared with the estimated 269 million users in 2018, or 5.3% of the population. Some 35.6 million people are said to have suffered from drug use disorders in 2018. It notes that poverty, limited education, and social marginalization may increase the risk of drug use disorders and exacerbate the consequences. In Benin City, Edo State, Nigeria, the state's Anti-Drug Abuse Committee believes steps can be taken to tackle the worrisome trend.
Awareness is still key. We are directing our awareness to the parents, the home. That unit is actually very important in containing illicit drug use and abuse in our society.
As illicit drug trafficking fuels drug use, the state's command of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency, NDLEA, has had to remain active even amidst the COVID-19 pandemic.
The Edo State Command between January and June 2020 made a total of 145 arrests of drug traffickers. We also recorded a seizure of 7,905.1 kilograms of various narcotic drugs. The bulk of the drug is cannabis sativa, popularly known as marijuana.
Cracking down on drug trafficking and those who profit from human misery, as well as making sure that those who need treatment get it, are other measures the UN proposes for a reduction in illicit drug use. Jessica Lugose, Channels Television News.
In the past few weeks, the Public Accounts Committee of the House of Representatives has been holding public hearings with government agencies to give account of their appropriations. The purpose of the public investigation is to ensure that government agencies operate within the law when it comes to spending. In this special report, our correspondent Terry Kumi takes a look at some of the outcomes of the meetings.
Public sector accountability is supposed to involve transparency, responsibility, trustworthiness, meaningful data, among others.
Honorable members.
However, the recent interactions between the House of Representatives Committee on Public Accounts and ministries, departments and agencies have revealed quite some shocking outcomes. From public officers who cannot clearly account for funds appropriated to them, to those whose accounts have remained unaudited for years.
So what's your capital? Your capital will be 3 point what? 6.12. That is the whole. That 6.120 is actually the total budget. Is Madam in your department?
No, she's under PRS.
So she authority, she prepared it?
She's the one who compiled. She compiled the information.
The account job is to give me the details. Then I'll just compile it and put it in the form that it is. So I don't know anything about the money or the compilation.
There are also those who the committee accuses of making unlawful payments.
That you paid Yaya J.O. 1.8 million naira, which is above the 200,000 naira allowed. Isn't this action a violation of provisions of Section 15 of Public Procurement Act?
It is true that the Treasury Circular has a threshold of 200 that is cash advance on procurement. But what we are saying is that all of the vouchers for the 15 staff that are enumerated here could not be procured.
Then there are public officials who the lawmakers say refuse to honor their invitation to give account.
To invite a permanent secretary to come and appear and defend auditors' queries, and for such citizen to ignore the invitation of the parliament is an indication that such a person is incompetent to man such office.
Apart from public hearings like this, it is the responsibility of the House of Representatives to investigate these MDAs, and that includes their funds, which the lawmakers appropriate. This now raises the question, from these revelations running into years, how did these findings skip the various National Assembly committees all these years, if they have been doing their job of oversight? Terry Ikumi, Channels Television News.
Agriculture is the main source of livelihood for most Nigerians. However, the sector faces challenges including poor access to credit and high cost of farm inputs. These have been compounded with the outbreak of COVID-19, which has hampered activities in the sector. Recently, the federal government, through the central bank, announced a 432 billion naira intervention for farmers during the 2020 planting season. Our next report takes a look at how this intervention can help the nation shore up its food bank.
Agriculture employs two-thirds of the entire labor force in the country, making it the largest sector in the Nigerian economy. However, several challenges continue to stifle the output in the sector. According to the Food and Agriculture Organization, Nigeria has lost $10 billion in annual export opportunity from groundnut, palm oil, cocoa, and cotton alone, due to the continuous decline in the production of these commodities.
No, we don't want you.
The COVID-19 pandemic has further disrupted activities in the sector, causing a shortfall in food production and the attendant threat to food security in the country. Against this backdrop, and as part of measures towards addressing the impact of COVID-19, the federal government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, recently announced a new deal for farmers for 2020 planting season.
We're looking at financing over 1.1 million farmers in a single year. Combined hectareage of over 1 million hectares. We're also looking at output of 8.3 million metric tons.
That is not the only plan for farmers. Also recently, the federal government developed the Agriculture for Food and Jobs initiative to remove restrictions and access to credit for small-scale farmers while creating jobs.
We've done the first set of enumeration and tying of farmers to their farms using the Empower Agro youth. And once we identify the farmers, it will be very easy then to calculate, which we have done already, to know what's the cost of production per acre of land or hectare of land. Then that will come as zero interest loan to finance all the inputs that farmers need to get in this 2020 wet season.
These are part of the measures expected to impact on the nation's food production. But how far can they go?
We have a staff strength of 2,500 during our peak periods of 8 to 9 months. Of that number, 600 are permanent staff, of which more than 95% are from the local host communities. With special emphasis on women empowerment, we have employed quite a number of women as operators of some of our farm machinery.
In the absence of timely and effective policies, millions more are likely to join the ranks of the hungry as a result of the impact of COVID-19 on the economy. Hopefully, these interventions will lead to a boost in the sector and guarantee food security for the country.
When the news at 10 returns, we'll look at food security in Nigeria, and the president of All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Kabir Ibrahim, joins us to discuss this. Please stay with us. Let's now examine further the challenges in the agricultural sector and the efforts of government in addressing them. We're now being joined from Katsina via Skype by the President, All Farmers Association of Nigeria, Mr. Kabir Ibrahim. I'd like to thank you for joining us on the news at 10 and start by asking, how much would you say COVID-19 has impacted on the agri sector in the country, especially with regards to food security?
Immensely. The COVID-19 has affected the food system
So in terms of COVID-19, are we seeing a decline? And do you think that the latest intervention by the Central Bank of Nigeria is enough to reverse it?
Well, it will go a long way. I'm sure the farmers need all kinds of support. The support coming from the CBN is timely, and it will go a long way. It will help us to upscale our production and therefore mitigate the effect of COVID-19.
You're fully abreast of the disbursements of the funds coming from the Apex Bank?
I have a feeling that it would come in, because if it doesn't come in on time, then it would be useless, because the rainy season has already set in most areas of the country, except where I am. Rains have not started falling, the way we would want. But the CBN has to give out this money as quickly as possible. And I'm sure they will do that, because it's going to come into the Anko Borrower scheme. So many people are participating and they are used to all the things that need to be done. So I believe they will start the disbursement as soon as possible.
Finally, what else do you think can be done to fully make the sector, the agricultural sector, as productive as possible? This is as we approach the post-COVID-19 era.
Well, I've said it time and again that the country really needs a special advisor on food security. There are many, many things that have to come in together to make this happen. The work in the Federal Ministry of Agriculture is so vast, but when you concentrate some power on some people and charge them with the food security in the country, like was done earlier on, I think in the beginning of, in 1999, Obasanjo appointed Professor Ango Abdullahi as the SA Food Security, and I believe there were many, many successes recorded. So I believe that if you appoint a special advisor on food security, it will go a long way and concentrate all the powers to make the food system work. Because if you have to do many, many things at a time, maybe things will not work out as we would want. But if you have a concentration of effort, food will be available, and we need it, because as time goes on, in 2021, the effect will be more, because we were lucky, in the beginning that the borders were closed due to certain circumstances, and we had food internally. So we are now able to feed the 200 million mouths that we have to feed. But as time goes on, things might change. So it's important that government upscales the production by concentrating it in one hand. And,
all right, we appreciate your time, Mr. Kabir Ibrahim, President of Farmers Association of Nigeria. Thank you for joining us on the News at 10.
You are welcome. Thank you.
And more stories now. More vulnerable groups have continued to receive food items from well-meaning individuals and organizations as a measure towards cushioning the suffering caused by the coronavirus pandemic. The latest gesture is coming from the Center for Values in Leadership, CVL, a not-for-profit organization and a coalition of civil society groups in Lagos. The founder of CVL, Professor Patu Tomi, says the initiative, called the Human Solidarity Network Project, targets 3,000 people, including widows, the aged and the poor in rural areas across the state.
Part of our effort is to use the whole concept idea of compassion to make people connect to the fact that people can care for other people, and maybe to make it easier for them to listen to the campaign about social distancing, washing of hands, and so on and so forth. We have tried to do it at various levels and targeting different kinds of groups. We have traditionally worked with widows. So our first round was aimed at 1,000 widows. And we've executed that first round. The second round is targeted at communities. But all of this, essentially, is to help us provide learning to potential leaders about what it means to be a leader.
Now, over in Adamawa State, about 300 communities are benefiting from a World Bank project aimed at opening up some rural areas in the state under its Assisted Rural Roads project. The World Bank project, which cost is put at 7 billion naira, is in collaboration with the French Development Agency and the Adamawa State government. Over 500 kilometers of rural roads have been earmarked for construction and rehabilitation, cutting across the 21 local government areas of the state.
Wide and well-tarred road as the situation in Yola, the Adamawa State capital. It's a different story in the rural areas. Majority of the roads there have been in very bad state and only used during the dry season. This, the residents say, is not good for food production and their living standards. The Rural Access and Mobility Project of the World Bank is helping to address this problem. In Phase 1, the project assisted 2 states in Nigeria, but in the Phase 2, 4 states, including Adamawa, were assisted. The project coordinator of Adamawa State, Ram 2, sheds more light on the nature of the project.
The aim of this project is to construct 500 kilometers of rural roads. So far, in the first phase, we have 169 kilometers of rural roads. Apart from the phase 1 and phase 2, we also have access to the constructed river crossings in the state, which is also about 65-kilometer roads.
The Commissioner for Infrastructure and Rural Development says the Adamawa State government provided counterpart funding as a precondition.
His Excellency has awarded 281 kilometers across the state. Out of the 21 local government that we have in Adamawa State, it's only Mubi South that currently is not benefiting from the road construction. Apart from the 221 kilometers, the 81 kilometers, there's also 65 kilometers. That one is what we call, or we refer to as, access to river crossing.
Residents of the benefiting communities in Labondo in Girei local government area, Bagore in Yola South, and in Parada in Fufure local government area applaud the government for opening up their communities.
Before there is a lot of problem. Before you take your input to the market, it's a problem. Your farm product to the house is another problem. Like patients to reach to the hospital is a problem. But now we are past this.
The construction of this road has been very, very beneficial to us and the citizens of the environs around us. We are very, very grateful to government for giving us such an infrastructure.
The construction and rehabilitation of these rural roads has brought succor and relief to the farming communities that are beneficiaries, who may be able to take advantage of it and better their lives.
Still on road rehabilitation, work commenced on the Kara Bridge on the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to determine the state of the structure following last Sunday's inferno on the bridge that resulted from an accident involving a tanker and 2 other heavy-duty vehicles. According to the Deputy Director, Federal Ministry of Works and Housing, Mr. Kaide Ibrahim, the actual integrity test on the infrastructure will be carried out tomorrow. Meanwhile, motorists using the road are having a tough time making their way through due to gridlock resulting from the diversion.
There was an accident here last week, and there was a fire incident. The fire affected the asphalt. As you can see, part of the asphalt is burned. Now, we want to do an integrity test to confirm the state of the concrete deck itself. So that's why we are milling off the burnt asphalt. Then we do some tests on it. Now the test result will tell us what to do next. But for the test itself, it will be done by tomorrow. But to fix it back into state, if the whole test is fine, it won't take us a day, more than a day, to finish.
Let's now bring you some business news. Here's Kayode Okikiolu.
Well, thank you, Millicent, and you're welcome to Business News. Nigeria's oil production has risen by an additional 225,000 barrels per day after Shell Nigeria Exploration and Production Company Limited completed maintenance of the Bonga Field floating production, storage and offloading vessel. The operator of the FPSO says the vessel was shut on May the 21st for rehabilitation to improve production and storage operations. SNEPCO, which is the Royal Dutch Shell's local subsidiary, says the vessel was restarted on June the 15th and production is ramping up after the successful completion of the scheduled maintenance activities ahead of the schedule. Nearly one-third of Nigeria's deep-water production comes from the Bonga oil field, which has produced about 880 million barrels of oil since it began operation in 2005. And over to the aviation sector, where the much-awaited COVID-19 bailout for the sector will be announced by the federal government anytime soon. And that's according to the Minister of Aviation, Mr. Hadi Sirika. At a press briefing after a test flight in preparation for the reopening of airports in the country, the minister said government had concluded its decision to assist the sector with about 26.12 billion naira, which is expected to go around the country's entire civil aviation industry. He explained that the palliatives, which is contained in the federal government economic sustainability plan, in conjunction with the central bank and the Ministry of Finance, will be announced next week. Meanwhile, the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 has expressed satisfaction with the handling of the test flight ahead of the restart plan of the industry. Nigeria needs to deepen economic reforms and boost government revenues in order to have a sustained recovery from the devastating effect of the coronavirus pandemic on the country. And that's according to the World Bank's country director, Shubham Chodhuri. While appraising moves by the central bank to unify its multiple exchange rate, which will be supportive of reforms and help attract foreign investments to boost sustainable recovery, it commended the government's transparency in disclosing the country's expected huge deficit this year as a step in the right direction. Chodhuri said the World Bank is considering a $3 billion budget support loan for Nigeria, which will cover around half of the country's external financial shortfall. He added that approval was expected within the next 3 to 4 months. Let's head over to the NSE, where Nigeria's stock market eked out a mild 0.01% increase on its main index and total value of listed equities after recording 4 consecutive days of sell pressure this week. The slight gain, which translates to about 107 billion naira, is largely attributed to increases from some bellwether equities, and that's despite a negative performance recorded across the 5 key sectors of the market. Airtel Africa emerged as the highest among 18 gainers following a 9.97% increase on its share price. PZ Cousins tops a list of 43 losers, down by 21.43%, while 102 equities were unchanged in price. Overall volume of shares traded for the week was lower at 739.27 million units in more than 17,000 transactions, and that's in contrast to 1.05 billion units traded last week, while the trio of FBN Holdings, Zenith and GT Bank were the top most actively traded stocks for the week. And that's Business News for tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Kayode Okikiolu. It's back to Millicent on the news at 10.
Friday. Still ahead on the news at 10, Nigeria's Oshiomhole scores 5th goal in 4 starts as Manchester United beat Norwich City to advance in the FA Cup. Plus, COVID-19 cases surge in countries around the world. Please stay with us.
Welcome to Sports News. Manchester United Football Club have advanced to the semi-final of the English FA Cup after a hard-fought 2-1 victory over 10-man Norwich City at Carrow Road. Nigeria's Oshiomhole scored to give his side the lead in the 51st minute. However, Todd Cantwell equalised in the 75th minute for the home team to take the game to extra time. After some resolute defending from the Canaries, captain Harry Maguire, the England international, scored in the dying minutes of the game to take the Red Devils to the last 4. Liverpool manager Jurgen Klopp says his main focus is to ensure the squad that delivered the Merseyside club's first top-flight title in 3 decades is not broken up in the future or in the near future. Now, Klopp, who took charge of Liverpool in 2015, has overseen the period of sustained dominance, delivering the Champions League last season and the league title this year. Dutch football legend Arjen Robben has announced that he intends to return to former club FC Groningen as a player. The 36-year-old retired at the end of last season, but had, according to reports, been considering a return to football for some time. And he has now decided to return to his boyhood club Groningen, for whom he played between 2000 and 2002 before moves to PSV Eindhoven, Chelsea FC, Real Madrid and Bayern Munich. I'm Ayotunde Balogun. That's a wrap in Sports News.
On the international scene, Ghana's ruling New Patriotic Party, NPP, has picked incumbent Nana Akufo-Addo as its presidential candidate in this year's election, setting up a 3rd consecutive head-to-head battle against former President John Dramani Mahama. Today, the ruling party, in a statement, says Mr. Akufo-Addo will contest the December 7th poll with Vice President Mahamudu Bawumia as his running mate. 61-year-old Mahama, who has been chosen by the National Democratic Congress, NDC, as its candidate, defeated Akufo-Addo in the 2012 presidential race. Both squared up again in 2016, but Mr. Akufo-Addo emerged victorious. Coronavirus is continuing its spread across the world, with more than 9 million confirmed cases in 188 countries. Almost 500,000 people have lost their lives, but nearly 5 million people have recovered. Here's more on our global update.
The number of recorded cases in India has surged to more than 500,000, where experts fear a further rise in cases could stretch the country's health system to its limit. 100,000 new infections have been reported in less than a week. Health officials say the rate of infections appear to be accelerating, and Friday's tally of more than 18,000 new cases marked a daily record. India has the world's 4th biggest outbreak of COVID-19 after the United States, Brazil, and Russia. In Brazil, Niterói City was the first city to impose a lockdown and deploy sanitary fumigation measures. Now, the city has launched a mass drive-through testing program. The city prides itself in taking the pandemic seriously, even though Brazil has the world's 2nd highest number of cases. And Britain says it will drop a 14-day quarantine period for people arriving from countries it deems to be lower risk for COVID-19. Official travel advice against all but essential travel outside Britain is also expected to be eased for some countries, making it easier for Britons to travel abroad for summer holidays. The countries are thought to be Spain, France, Greece, Italy, the Netherlands, Finland, Belgium, Turkey, Germany and Norway, but not Portugal or Sweden, where infections have recently spiked. And Madrid City Hall lit up the skies with drones as a tribute to COVID-19 victims and for frontline workers in Spain. 40 programmed drones with multiple colored LED lights shone over Madrid, creating different forms including messages of hope and thank you and flags of other countries fighting the coronavirus pandemic. Spain has been one of the worst hit countries from COVID-19.
And the main news again. The Federal Airports Authority of Nigeria today conducted a dry run of flight operations in Abuja and Lagos. The Minister of Aviation, Hadi Sirika, who led some members of the Presidential Task Force on COVID-19 on inspection of the airports, gave the assurance that domestic flights will resume soon. Also today, the former national chairman of the All Progressives Congress, Oshiomhole, said his loyalty to President Buhari and the APC remained unshaken as he formally accepted the dissolution of the party's National Working Committee. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Millicent Walker. Have a good night. Continue to stay healthy and stay safe.